Welcome to Up One, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the science behind supplements, therapies, and diagnostics. I'm Sawyer Stone, your guide through the maze of health claims, here to ask the big questions.
And I'm Dr. Bill Andrews. With decades of experience in medical research, I've dedicated my career to uncovering the real science behind disease, aging, and human health. On this podcast, we don't just skim the surface of scientific studies. We conduct a critical meta-analysis, separating credible research from misleading conclusions.
There's a lot of noise out there, conflicting studies, bold claims, and endless marketing. Up One is here to cut through it all and bring you science-backed insights that you can actually trust.
We're talking prevention, diagnostics, treatments, and the big questions shaping the future of health.
If you're serious about understanding the science of health and longevity without the fluff, let's take it Up One. Dr. Bill, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's a heat dome over here in North Carolina. I imagine that it's much hotter where you are.
Actually, no, because we're at close
you're
to
at
5,000
elevation.
feet altitude here.
Oh,
So,
I forget that every
yeah.
time.
That's why I've got a long sleeve shirt on.
Yeah. See, I
'cause
have
when I-
long sleeves on because I have AC. I'm grateful for it. All right. Well, let's talk about the heart and stress and heat and all the things that are negatively impacting the heart.
All right.
I want to talk with you about some of the proven facts and then popular myths associated with heart health, and then just get into some nitty gritty details about our tickers. If you have the time today, sir.
Yes. No, I've been studying cardiovascular disease for 40 years, so
Oh,
I should be
well-versed.
able to tell you all about the ups and downs and the changes of opinions and things like that I've observed. So yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, well, my very first question is very, very important. What is your favorite berry?
Well, taste wise, so blackberries is my favorite taste wise.
Okay.
But if we're talking about heart health, I would say blueberries are probably better um, because of the particular antioxidants that are in there. So when we talk about antioxidants, I personally don't follow the idea of getting your antioxidants from fruits and stuff like that,
Oh, you don't?
because it's hard to know how much you're taking and if you're taking the right amount. So I,
Yeah,
pe-
fair.
I personally do supplements and adjuvants. Um, Now, see, I
Yeah.
think alpha-lipoic acid, one of those is
I think it's
in
alpha-lipoic acid because I take it.
alpha-lipoic acid is in blueberries.
Mhm.
And then alpha-tocotrienol comes from tomatoes. Okay, so
Okay.
you can get your those from tomatoes. And then there's also proanthocyanidins, uh, another antioxidant. And those three that I just mentioned, alpha-lipoic acid, alpha-tocotrienol, and proanthocyanidins, are three antioxidants that are especially good for your heart. Um, and About 20 years ago, we created what we call the Antioxidant Quartet, which is
Oh,
made up of those three antioxidants plus carnosic acid.
wow.
And carnosic acid probably doesn't benefit your heart, but it does decrease risk of cancer. So
Mm.
20 years ago, we here at Sierra Sciences, we did a big critical meta-analysis of peer-reviewed studies on antioxidants and decided what was the best combination to get the best of all possibilities with antioxidants. And we came up with the
Ah.
Antioxidant Quartet. But we never launched it as a product um, because the investors uh, got upset with who was the then president of my company for steering us away from telomere biology. And so
One track
we
mind.
totally put that aside. But I take the antioxidant quartet myself every day. I have all
Yeah.
four of those antioxidants that I take. Um, so yeah, but
Yeah.
Yeah, blueberries would probably be the best if you're somebody that doesn't want to take supplements or adjuvants, but it's then hard to know how much you're taking.
Yeah, and that and the sugar that's in a berry, you gotta be balanced and careful with all the different, getting involved with whole food supplements. There's, like, all the good
I
stuff that comes with whole foods and then the sugars that are
I have
involved.
blueberries every morning with my oatmeal. So
Oh, yeah.
I try to keep it like when I put blueberries on top of my oatmeal, I make certain it's not larger than the size of an orange. Okay. I
Yeah.
figure orange is a acceptable amount of sugar. And so whatever. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
do try to keep my sugar levels low.
Well, that's good to know. How can you tell me a little bit more about how the antioxidants are protecting our heart cells from damage and how it calms down the inflammation, hello,
Well,
economy?
antioxidants pretty much don't reduce inflammation, but so antioxidants will reduce the things that can, yeah, can cause inflammation, but you're probably better off doing anti-inflammatories in addition.
Hmm.
And there's a
Yeah.
lot of blueberries do contain anti-inflammatories too, polyphenols, for example. So you're getting your anti-inflammatory and your antioxidants from blueberries.
Nice. They're a superfood. They're so good and delicious and rich in color and flavor. Okay. Well, we often hear about eating real food for a healthy heart, whole food. We always come back to whole foods. What is the big difference between like a real whole food and then processed stuff? And like what does that difference actually affect within our heart cells? And like how do we keep them healthy?
Well, it's all a question of the types of fat, okay, really.
Oh.
So when you get processed foods, it's usually got a lot of trans fats and saturated fats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's those are inflammatory, but one of the things that I like to think about is the fact that trans fats and saturated fats are linear fats. They're linear molecules, whereas the ones that are unsaturated or polyunsaturated depends on if there's cysts. So if there's cysts, so trans fats is a unsaturated fat, except that the hydrogens are sticking in the opposite directions off the molecule, and as a result, it causes it to form a linear molecule like saturated fats are. And then so I like to think of it like if you have a column that has a bunch of beads in it, and you're passing a bunch of molecules through it. Linear molecules are going to pass through that column slower than round molecules. And uh,
Hmm.
so the saturated fats and the trans fats, because they're linear, are more likely to slow down the movement of stuff through the blood and actually more likely to collect and aggregate and form pools of stuff that can cause blood clots. Um, but yeah, so that's the problem. The main problem with processed foods is the
Yeah.
having the saturated fats and the trans fats. Um,
Yeah.
though not all uh, unsaturated fats are healthy either.
Okay, so fat clogs our arteries, both good fat and bad fat clogs our arteries, which leads to is it what would you call is it shoot, what's the word I'm trying to think of? What do you call the blockage? There's like a fancy word
A
for the
plaque,
blockage.
plaque,
Plaque, thank you.
yeah.
Haha. So once the plaque is built up in our arteries, it's kind of like does like you gotta get scraped out, you gotta put stent in, all the things. Is there has to be good fats that are good for us, like omegas, and I know there's fish-based omegas and then there's plant-based omegas or omega-3s rather. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
Omega-3 fatty acids, EPA, DHA, DPA, DPA is from plants. They're all really good for you. Okay, they're unsaturated and they tend not to form the linear molecules because that's when I was talking about the fact that the saturated and trans form linear molecules. That also makes them more likely to form solids. Okay, like
Oh, which is
butter.
the plaque.
Yeah, but yeah, well, it's not exactly. I mean, plaques are a lot more complicated. Plaques are really not originally inside the blood vessel. Okay, They're actually in the
Oh.
space between the endothelial cells and the smooth muscle cells, and that's called the intimal media area. And so the plaque builds up, but it's a combination of a lot lipids, cholesterol. Most recent things in the last 20 years, because I was studying this 20 years ago, is the immune cells. Okay, macrophages, things like that, are really aggregating inside that area between the media and media and intimal. So that between the endothelial cells and the smooth muscle cells. That's okay. I mean, it does cause a bulge in your blood vessels and it does disrupt the flow a little bit, but the problem occurs when that plaque ruptures and then
Mm,
instantly forms a clot. Okay, and that can
I see.
form a clot in the entire intimal area, the entire blood vessel, and kill you. Um,
Yeah.
but boy, there's so much more to it than that. I've been doing research on that for I'd say 40 years, and I'm one of the discoverers of tissue plasminogen activator and thrombomodulin that are both involved in uh, preventing plaques and uh, breaking down plaques. Uh, like for instance, if somebody's having a heart attack or a stroke right now today, ambulances when they find them will inject TPA, which is one of the things I discovered close to 40 years ago.
Very cool.
I mean, my team and I discovered it, but uh, it breaks down the blood clots. It's a very complicated process, just more involved in than what I just mentioned. But yeah, it's there's so many things you can do to decrease the rate of clot formation, but the most important thing is just have good genetics. There are people that can do anything they want, eat anything they want, and they never build plaque. Okay,
Sure.
but there's let's say 9p21 is one gene that's bad for you. LP little a, KIF6, I think it is another gene. So those three. So if you have those three or any one of those threes, you have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. But so then
Wow.
you have to really be careful about what you're doing. But if you don't have them, you're just lucky, and you can probably go your whole life without ever having any plaque buildup whatsoever.
How would you test for a gene like that, just in case somebody's curious that's listening?
Uh, well, you can send um, swabs from the inside of your mouth or blood samples into various places. But the probably the world's leading expert on this is Dr. Amy Doneen up in
Oh,
Spokane, Washington.
you mentioned
Um,
her before.
yeah, I talk about her a lot because she's written two really good books. One called The Heart Attack Gene, and
Oh,
I forget what the other one. The other one's related to the brain because the brain is also very affected by cardiovascular stuff. Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia and stroke especially are caused by cardiovascular problems. Um, but she talks about all those genes, and I have that book sitting over on my bookshelf over there, and I can see from here it's got about 10 paper clips in it where I've marked different pages to refer to. But I think the best test to see if you have plaque is called the CIMT test, which is
CIMT.
uh, carotid intimal media thickness. Okay, so it's an ultrasound that they do on your carotid arteries because your carotid arteries are no different than your coronary arteries, really. So if you don't have plaque in your carotid arteries, you don't have plaque in your coronary arteries. Is the theory. It's really hard to
Uh-huh.
do an ultrasound on your heart and the coronary arteries because your heart's moving all the time, but your carotid
Right.
arteries not. So so called the CIMT, and what it does, it's an ultrasound that measures the thickness of the space between your endothelial cells and your smooth muscle cells, called the intimal media area, the thickness of that. And that's a test that a lot of hospitals and doctors can do. And it's really probably the best test because things like stress tests are meaningless because you can totally pass a stress test and the next day a plaque ruptures and you're suddenly having a heart attack. Since I'm a vegan, uh, I actually don't take fish oils.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
thought.
And what I do is I take synthetic. EPA, which is called Vascepa, VASCEPA, which
Placebo.
is by prescription.
Okay.
And I'm not vegan because I'm trying to protect animals, though that is a
It's
icing
not
on the
about the
cake.
animals, it's about me.
Yeah, it's about the fact that uh, there's like another fatty acid called arachidonic acid, which is an omega-6, which is very inflammatory. And
Yeah.
arachidonic acid is only found in meat and fowl and fish and dairy, but not in plants. So
I'm telling you, we come back to arachidonic acid almost every single episode. It's
we
evil.
do. Oh yeah, it's because I just turned out to be particularly sensitive to it. I mean, it's like
Fair.
so I tend to focus on that, but you know, I get by because of all the healthy things I do. So the arachidonic acid doesn't cause me any troubles, but I do try to stay away from arachidonic acid as much as I can. Um, and I might have mentioned that Floyd Clifton has a book called Inflammation Nation, where he talks about arachidonic acid. If anybody wants to know more about that,
Good to
but
know.
so the other thing that EPA does, especially maybe DHA also, is it does compete with arachidonic acid. I don't think I've mentioned that before. So that's another benefit because EPA, DHA, DPA, they're the opposite of arachidonic acid in that they're anti-inflammatory, whereas arachidonic acid is pro-inflammatory.
Mm,
And so there's a lot of EPA. They also change the membrane lining of your cells to make them less vulnerable to inflammatory responses. Um, and there's a bunch of benefits that I can't remember all of off the top of my head.
that's all right. Okay, so I think we talked a little bit about how the fats are affecting our arteries. So we talked a little bit about plaque and cholesterol, and you said some things about LDLs, and we talked about lipids and all these other things. And like when you go get your cholesterol numbers pulled by the doctor, there are like 4 or 5 numbers that they're reading off of, and obviously ranges that go with those numbers. Beyond the cholesterol numbers for heart indicators, are there any other, like, hidden signs or processes inside of our body that scientists are looking at to spot heart problems really early on before stuff becomes obvious?
Well, inflammation, yeah, inflammation is
Another
the
evil.
yeah. I mean, it's the number one cause of aging. Inflammation is necessary for us, but it's actually one of the big problems for us too. And inflammation helps us fight against infections and things like that, but it just gets out of control, especially when we're older, and it overdoes things. But yeah, so the C reactive protein test, the TNF alpha test, there's a bunch of markers that if you went to somebody like Dr. Amy Doneen, she would test you with a whole battery of things. I listened to her speak at a RadFest conference a few
Mm.
years ago, and
Can you tell us what
she
Radfest is for the groups, for the peeps, for the listeners?
RadFest is a conference that actually is coming up in like 2 to 3 weeks right now. It's called RAD stands for Revolution Against Aging and Death. And
Whoa.
instead of just being a conference, it's a festival. Okay, so there's more to it than just listening to the
An
speakers.
anti-aging festival.
Yeah, and it's actually, in my opinion, the best conference there is for anti-aging. If anybody, it's what I like about it is that the quote charlatans, and there's so many in the field of anti-aging and health.
I love that word.
They're just not invited. We go through I'm on the board of directors for the Coalition for Radical Life Extension, and Coalition for Radical Life Extension is the one that puts on RadFest, and we go through very critical detail to find out who can be a speaker and who can't be a speaker. So it actually has the best of the best, and so if somebody really wants to know what's the best thing they can do about their health is go to that conference. There are other conferences there, but you'll find that 90% of them are charlatan. Well, you won't find it. You won't know it. But when I go, I know that 90% of them are charlatans. And the Coalition for Radical Life Extension has just organized a march on Washington. That's they've
Protest?
gotten the approval. It's going to be in September of 2026. It's going to be at the
Okay.
Lincoln Memorial, and we're going to be. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be one of the speakers, and a few other people. It's going to be several speakers, but it's a whole idea of changing, revamping the FDA to start allowing people with life-threatening diseases. If you're told you have 6 months to live, you shouldn't need FDA approval to try a treatment. You should be able to
Yeah.
try anything you want. So if
Yeah.
anybody's interested, go to the Coalition for Radical Life Extension website and uh, join the march.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. That makes sense to me. You have 6 months to live. Somebody's telling you that, like, why not try whatever you want to try? Or don't try anything at all. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I published a paper with Liz Parrish on what's called best choice medicine. And it's all about how people with life-threatening diseases or diseases that are not worth living for, uh, to be able to try anything they want, even if it hasn't even been tested in animals.
Okay.
The
Well, thank you for our aging tangent. We always come back to aging too. I feel like it's one of our hot button topics. Well,
Well,
because
that
if you
was
think
because we
about it,
talked about Radfest. Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. But if you think about us coming back to aging with everything, like all of the stuff that we're going to talk about in any and all of our podcast episodes always goes back to how you're treating your body, which has an effect on longevity, which is aging. So I feel like it's all going in one direction towards aging. Okay, Beth. So back to what I was saying about cholesterol numbers. You get the panel. It's all cholesterol numbers. But what else aside from the cholesterol numbers can doctors look at that might be a sign of like really bad problems or something that's obvious that isn't just a cholesterol number?
Well, yeah, as I think I mentioned my fears, the CIMT test,
Mhm.
the inflammation markers, sugar levels, like because sugar is so inflammatory and so is insulin. There's a whole battery, and I can't remember them all, but there's a whole battery of things that can be indications of whether you have cardiovascular disease or not, or risk of cardiovascular disease.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Well, then, when it comes to heart health, is it better to get specific nutrients from a mix of foods, or can we take supplements for each thing that we need? Do certain nutrients work better inside our bodies? I know, like, there's even, like, we were talking about this with turmeric and curcumin turmeric last week, where, one of them you take within 6 hours of each other counteracts the other one's capabilities. Like, what can we do? Do we need to take specific whole foods to get what we need for our heart, or can we take some supplements?
I'm a very supplement and adjuvant person, and I don't know if people know what the word adjuvant means, but
I don't know what it means, so please tell me.
okay, so if your body is already producing some type of molecule and you take that as a pill, then you're supplementing what you already have.
Yes,
If the
okay.
pill contains something that your body doesn't produce, it's actually called an adjuvant. I can't remember which one. I think alpha-lipoic acid, for instance, is a supplement, but alpha-tocotrienol is an adjuvant, and so is proanthocyanidins. That's an adjuvant too, because your body doesn't produce it. And on that particular subject, I recommend a book called The Kaufman Protocol, which is the best book ever
We've heard
written.
about her before.
That's okay, yeah. No, it's like that's another book I see over on my shelf. There's 4 books that I really consider 5 books actually, because one of them's missing. 5 books that I really consider the best books ever written. And those are the 2 books by Amy Doneen, Floyd Chilton, and then somebody who we haven't talked about yet, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn.
No, we have not.
And this is very, very important for cardiovascular disease. Um, but before I go there, because you had mentioned turmeric and
Uh-huh, curcumin.
curcumin. Um,
Yeah.
Turmeric without curcumin is one of the ingredients in this new product called Telovital
Yeah.
that induces telomerase expression. But the reason why that's important for heart health is, like, I want to say 40 years ago, back in the 1980s, we did a study with baboons where we looked at uh, the blood vessels, the arteries, veins by the bifurcation, which is lower in your body. And we found that it's where the branches go off to send blood to your legs, but that's a very turbulent area. And so we were looking at that, and because of the turbulence, endothelial cells get lost a lot, and they get worn away, and other cells have to divide to replace them. And so as a result, the place where the bifurcation is, the cells have shorter telomeres.
Ah,
And we also were able to show in the same studies that no matter where in the blood vessels there are, when plaque would build up, it was also at areas where endothelial cells and smooth muscle cells had short telomeres. And so short telomeres does increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. And that's why doing whatever you can to keep your telomeres long would decrease the rate of cardiovascular disease. And
it's all tied
people always
together.
wonder why we never evolved a way not to have cardiovascular disease. And that's a whole nother subject, which I'll just summarize in a few words. And that's the success of the species from an evolutionary perspective is better off if we eliminate the longer lived. So we're never going to evolve a way to
Yeah.
not age and not have all these diseases, age-related diseases, unless we do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, Now can we get back to Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn?
Yes.
Um, okay, says he is actually probably tied with Dr. Amy Doneen as, I think, the best cardiovascular doctors in the world.
Alrighty.
Um, and he's written books on how to prevent and reverse cardiovascular disease. But here's here's the key thing that he says that is very, very different from anybody else. And I've done a lot of critical meta-analysis of peer-reviewed studies on this, and I really believe Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn knows what he's talking about. And that's that oils, all oils, including olive oil, are bad for you. Okay. Because olive oil is advertised as something great for your heart and
Uh-huh.
cardiovascular system.
Uh-huh.
But what they don't tell you, and even though it's well published by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and others, is that oils cause your collateral arteries, your microvasculature in your heart to collapse. And which
Huh.
is no big deal as long as your coronary arteries are open. Okay. But if you're if you do get a plaque suddenly rupture and one of your coronary arteries gets blocked, and you're going to die with that. You won't
Yeah.
die if your collateral arteries are open. So so there are people who have 100% blockage of their coronary arteries that just live on a diet that has no oils. They don't even cook in oil. Okay, and their
Wow.
collateral arteries are so much when you so one of the things I liked about Caldwell Esselstyn is he one time took a heart and dissolved all the heart tissues. And so he was only left with the blood vessels, the arteries, the veins, the blood vessels of the heart. And it looks still like a heart. Okay. Because
Oh,
there's so
really?
many collateral arteries, microvascular in the heart that it essentially looks still like a heart when you dissolve everything else. So,
That's
when you have
crazy.
a blockage in your coronary arteries, there's plenty of blood vessels to go around those things, like uh, bypasses and things like that, which
Yeah.
are natural bypasses. So your heart is still well fed with blood vessels unless you consume oils. Then your
Interesting.
collateral arteries and microvasculars collapsed. So
Yeah, I know
that's
somebody who who had blockage and their heart like rebuilt pathways to get the blood there. Like that.
and yeah, no, you're right. You can it's a very dynamic situation. You can, if they're open if the
Yeah. Your body
collateral
can.
arteries are open to be able to do so without killing you before it has a chance to do it. Yeah, they can make natural bypasses. After all the critical meta-analysis that I've done on this subject, I'm a big believer in a vegan diet with no oil. So not even cooking. So I do that. My identical twin brother, Rick, uh, he's actually started uh, organization called Squeaky Vegans, which squeaky
Squeaky
because of no
vegans?
squeaky, like a squeaky tire. It's
Yeah.
squeaky because of no oil. Okay, so it's Squeaky Vegans, and
Ah,
it's a Facebook site that's actually got a lot of members. A lot of people are following Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn's diet, and I think it's a very smart thing to do. I recommend it for everybody. Um,
well, okay, but I have a technical question because
yes,
you're not having butter and you're not having vegan butter because vegan butter is just oil. What are you cooking with? Water?
microwave. I well, no,
Another evil.
I I I my whole strategy with cooking is to go to Whole Foods and buy things like Amy's dinners, which are vegan.
Ah, I
And
see.
but I I I'm not 100% uh, vegan, no oils, but if I had a clogged artery, I sure would be.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
the
I just was like, what are you throwing in a stir fry pan? I guess is what I was saying. Like, if you like,
I never cook stir fry, and
I see. Okay,
I
great.
but and even the vegan meals have some oil in them, but I do
Yeah.
I cut down the oil as much as possible. Um,
Okay.
the but you mentioned butter, and that made me think of something. Oh yeah, so uh, I also avoid nuts, and I also avoid avocados and
Really?
things
Because
like
they're
that
high in oil.
because of the high oil in them. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes
but
sense.
I'll
Although I'm sad for you to be without avocados. They're so yummy.
yeah, well, every once in a while I do put avocado on my sandwiches. But if I ended up having severe coronary heart disease, I would be definitely
Yeah.
stop eating avocados and nuts and things like that. But I'm on a cocktail party and there's a bowl of nuts there. I'm going to grab them and eat them.
There you
But
go.
I,
Okay. All right. So then my next question is surrounding vitamin K2. There's some evidence that vitamin K2 is important for a healthy heart. How does this vitamin work inside our bodies to stop our arteries from getting stiff and make sure calcium goes where it's supposed to instead of clogging up our heart?
well, you kind of just answered my question because I was going to say that K2, vitamin K2 actually prevents calcium, interferes with calcium uh, being deposited on your blood vessels. Um, but there's another angle to that that's very important. Okay, so we talked about the plaque between your endothelial cells and the smooth muscle cells.
Hmm.
If you have a lot of that, for instance, if you did a CIMT test and you were told you have lots of plaque, the best thing you could do is convert that to calcium, okay, to make it
Okay.
hard plaque. Okay. I mean, the
Ah,
hard plaque will cause a little bit of uh, like maybe your blood vessels won't be as open as before, and maybe things like beets and uh, arginine and things like that can help open them with the nitric oxide. But uh, and I don't think that's one of the questions you were going to ask, but I just said it anyway. But
no,
the
that's the thing. That's a great topic to go down the rabbit hole on.
so uh, the making the hard plaque is actually better than having the soft plaque because the hard plaque isn't going to rupture. Okay,
I
and
see.
form a clot like so if I was somebody that had a lot of plaque, I would be doing everything I could to convert that to uh,
Hard plaque.
uh, calcium, hard plaque, calcified plaque, and that might be that I would stop taking vitamin K2. But I got to look into that. That's something to do a critical meta-analysis of peer-reviewed studies on to see if uh, if actually vitamin K2 actually prevents uh, soft plaque from being converted to hard plaque.
Okay, so we know the diet has a huge, enormous impact on many things in our bodies, but very specifically heart health because we're talking about the trans fat, saturated fat, and then healthy fats and all those guys. What do things like stress, not getting enough sleep, exercise, all of these other sort of lifestyle factors, how do those impact our heart health, even if we're eating well? Because I know somebody that eats very clean, has a great diet, works out, exercises, but ended up having a heart attack because of stress and probably lack of sleep
And probably genetics. That person
and
probably
probably
had some bad
genetics.
genetics. Um, but lack of sleep um, induces the body's stress response. And you just mentioned
Sure.
stress, but it's It's a problem that makes changes in your hormones and stuff like that. It's the that induces the sympathetic nervous system response, and like the fight or flight kind of response, and those kind of things induce inflammation and cause problems. And again, we come back to inflammation. It's
Hmm.
one of the worst things possible. But yeah, but like when I think of sleep, I think of one of the biggest problems is sleep apnea,
Yeah.
where where because of the obstructive sleep apnea,
Mm.
you you go without oxygen for a while, and so the decrease in oxygen
Crazy.
also decreases all those responses I just mentioned, and inflammation, and it's just bad for you. So getting good night's sleep is actually good for your heart, uh, just to prevent the body's stress response.
Yeah. Can we do a tangent on sleep really quick? Just a quick one. I just read recently somewhere that somebody was talking about how men need like an average of 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day, and female bodies need between like 9 and 10 hours of sleep. Is that true?
I have never heard that,
Okay.
and I would be really surprised if there was a peer-reviewed study showing that. It's
Okay.
it's one of these things you can hear on it sounds like the typical thing, there's some press release, and somebody wrote a book and mentioned that, and the books are not peer-reviewed. But
Right.
I would check in that. The second thing we've discussed at this, podcast today, I will check into that and report back at a future podcast on the 2 things.
Okay. Sounds good. And we may need to do a whole episode on sleep. Who knows? Okay, so we know that the stress and the lack of sleep and the all the things are affecting us. Now, some people say that they detox for their heart health, and that, detox is such a generalized word nowadays. Like you could do a screen detox, you can do a sun detox, you can do a liquor detox, you can do all these kinds of detoxing. Do you think that detoxing is just like a fad? Do we think that it's actually having a direct impact on heart health? Is there some sort of like juice cleanse detox that's really helping our heart? What do you think?
Yeah, no, detoxing is extremely important in my book. I mean, toxins come back to the same thing that, well, that a lot of toxins are free radicals or oxidants. So the antioxidants can affect those. But they also cause inflammatory responses, especially when they start doing damage to certain cells, and your body starts recognizing those cells as now a foreign body because of so much damage. So, so
Eh.
yeah, so detoxing is very, very important. And you asked me if there was a solution you could drink or something like that, but
Well,
I
you know how some people go on these juice cleanses where all
yeah,
they drink or eat or anything for like 2 weeks straight is a juice, like a green juice or like a grapefruit juice or something like that.
I think a lot of those are not really that great. I mean, it's like a lot of companies are trying to promote detoxing protocols that don't really work. Uh, my favorite is zeolite, which is, gets rid of heavy metals. And I know it's a little bit biased towards this podcast, but it is really, I think, that one of the greatest things you can do to detox,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
get rid of heavy metals and other charged molecules.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't even talk about heavy metals and their impact on the heart, but we know that is definitely
Or
having an
heavy,
impact.
heavy metals are a major toxins.
Yeah. Well, and we know like heavy metals and toxins are stored in fat cells, which impact heart health. So it's all. Tell me, what is like a myth that you've heard about heart health that you think you want to dispel?
The biggest thing that I hear, and this is something I'm surprised I haven't touched on already, um, is that running and endurance exercises are bad for your heart. Okay,
Mm.
that's a myth that's so untrue. It's not the endurance exercise; it's how you do it that's bad for you. Okay, so if you're gonna be running as hard as you can, as fast as you can, trying to break world records and things like that, or personal records, you're doing your body an injustice because you're inducing a lot of inflammation. But let me back up. That's only partially true. If you are somebody that exercises every day, if every time you got up out of your chair and went anywhere, you ran, okay, you, you, you would never ever have any inflammation from running. because and
Right, because
just run slow, keep it fun. Just
yeah,
get your body. Don't just stroll slowly. Just put a little energy into it to actually
yeah,
get your heart pumping and things like that. Exercise your heart. That's actually good. But then if you
yeah,
go to the extreme, like
yeah.
you're running marathons and crossing finish lines on your hands and knees, throwing up, that's
Nope.
inducing a lot of inflammation. And that's what a lot of what I call inconsistent runners or kayakers or bicyclists do.
Yeah.
They 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 will go weeks without doing anything and then go run really fast or kayak really fast or bike really fast. And that's not good for you because your body's saying, "Hey, what's going on here? This is of course, your immune system doesn't have a brain, but it's the analogy I like kind of pretends it does have a brain, but it starts thinking, oh
Totally.
my God, it, there's something attacking your body. And so it induces an immune response to fight it. Um,
Yeah,
and then as we talked about, immune response is inflammation. That's bad for your heart, bad for everything, bad for aging.
yeah.
Um, so, but running, if you run every single day. And this rumor that you shouldn't run every day, you should run every other day. There's not a single peer-reviewed study that ever showed that. What's the big difference between running every 48 hours versus every 24 hours? There isn't. But
And you're here to dispel this myth personally. What's your
I've
total run record? Aren't you like
well,
in the 300s or something?
I've over 5 years of not missing a day
Oh,
of running.
5 years.
Um,
Oh my gosh. Wow, it's so many
I
days.
I started, I used to when I was really heavily running ultra marathons. I would take days off, like once a week or something
Yeah,
like that from my running,
yeah.
just to do better in my ultra marathon. I always used to say that tapering was the secret weapon. Tapering just before a race was the secret weapon. But when COVID started, I decided to stay. I did a few ultras, and I was so worried about the risks of COVID when I came to aid stations and stuff like that that I kind of slowed down and just started a running streak instead. So I've now run every day since COVID started, and it's over 5 years. I believe that's really good. I mean, I go out and I run 5 miles, and when I get done, 5 minutes after I get done, I don't even remember. And my body doesn't even feel like I went out and ran. Okay. And I'll
Yeah.
run up steep mountains and things like that. And uh, just feel like it's nothing. But that's what your body gets to do. If you just take it, I always say when it quits being fun, quit
Yeah. Yeah.
because your body will not induce an inflammatory response. I get my inflammation markers measured every 3 months, and I never
Mm.
ever have uh, inflammation problems. And let me add on the subject of inflammation.
Let's hear it.
I might have said this before at one of the previous podcasts, but everybody should take what's called an ALCAT test, ALCAT.
Yes.
If you Google that, you can find places that provide that. But it's not an allergy test. It's a food sensitivity test. It measures the ability of certain foods to induce inflammation in you, and everybody's different. Okay, that's how I
Yeah.
found out that I was sensitive to arachidonic acid, was taking the
Mhm.
LCAT test. Okay, but it everybody's going to find different foods that are going to make them sensitive, and plus your body changes all the time. Okay,
Yeah.
if you eat oatmeal every single day and then for a year and take the LCAT test, you're going to find out that you have that oatmeal is inducing inflammation in you. Possibly, it's more likely than not. And so you switch to cream of wheat for a while, okay, uh,
Yeah.
and then take the LCAT test again, and then you'll find out you're no longer sensitive to oatmeal, but now you're sensitive to cream of wheat. The solution is to not always eat the same thing every day, which I'm kind of guilty of. But I take the LCAT test every year, so I find out.
So
Yeah,
would you say that the phrase would be is everything in moderation, including moderation?
oh, that's a good one. Yeah. So I don't know if it's moderation in terms of quantity, but
Mhm.
it's moderation in terms of variety. So
Yeah.
you want to have variety.
Yeah.
But I kind of keep life simple. So I do have oatmeal every morning for breakfast with my blueberries and raspberries and blackberries on top of it. And with almond milk. And plus one time the LCAT tests showed me that I was sensitive to almond milk, so I had to switch to soy milk for a while. In fact, it
Mm,
told me that I was sensitive to all non-dairy milks except soy milk, which was kind of like
well,
weird because soy has got all the bad problems of,
I was gonna
I think
say,
we talked about it the last
we did,
podcast.
yeah.
Soy's got all the bad problems of inducing inflammation in some people.
Yeah,
And here I am being told that soy milk's the
it
only
works
milk
for
I can
you.
drink. But I'm back to almond milk now. I think almond milk
Okay.
tastes a lot better than soy milk.
Yeah, I could see that. All right, well, my last question for you is, heart health seems like such a large topic here in the States versus abroad. Do you think that's because of processed foods? My
Yep,
assumption is
absolutely.
yes.
If our sugar intake is too high, it's way beyond everybody else's. I don't know where it all got started, but somehow marketers try to market the unhealthiest foods here in the United States, and we all started eating them.
All right. Well, Bill, I think aside from our stress-inducing recording today, which our listeners will know about, but we've had the most trouble with our recording today, and we've kept it fun, which is reducing inflammation and reducing stress. I think that our heart episode went well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it immensely, and
Yeah.
I'm sure all this stuff about the stress parts that were induced by technical problems will be edited out.
Oh, I
Yeah.
hope so. I am sure it will be seamless by the time it reaches our listeners' ears, but we know. Well, thanks for joining me here today on our Up One podcast. To everybody out there, stay curious and thanks for listening. Goodbye. Thanks for joining us on Up One. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with someone who's curious about the real science behind health.
Have a topic you want us to break down? Send us your questions. We're here to help you separate fact from fiction.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and let's keep taking it up one.